Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 2, Episode 3 of Your Honor. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so first and foremost, we have the Baxters. We have Jimmy having his plans about what he wants to build, kind of the legacy he has for his family, and it involves this leasing of this property, amount of land that he ended up getting from the city. And basically the deals are finalizing, and the last person who has to sign off on it is basically the mayor. But the problem is Charlie doesn't want to sign off on something that could mean getting in bed with the Baxters. Yes, it was set up by his predecessor, but it will still be his signature, so it will fall on him, especially considering everything that went down last season. Obviously, he doesn't have the greatest, the Baxters. I mean, obviously just knowing who the family is in general, but I'm assuming if a lot of last season didn't happen, who knows how much of that would have influenced his decision this season. But it's also because he's trying to be a good person. Charlie tries to do the right thing. Obviously, it means you have to kind of do business with some bad people. Once again, there's that conversation of, disappeared car, but it was no, it was a coffin with headlights and stuff like that. But Charlie's a decent enough person, so he is trying to not help out the Baxters. But like I said, I wonder how much of Adam's death and everything last season, especially Adam, Kofi, Eugene's mom, and his other siblings, how much that influences some of the decisions of what Charlie's deciding upon. I think you can't say it's not none. I think not none. I'm sure that counts as a double negative. I think you can't say it doesn't have 0% chance of it, 0% not to do with any of it, so gotta border that terribly, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. But when he tries to make the deals, he unfortunately brought Gina along because Gina saw this as an opportunity because she knows Charlie helped Big Mo with the club deal. And so the moment Charlie started giving pushback, once again showing you who Jimmy is versus who Gina is. Jimmy's trying to be diplomatic about it. Gina's like, all right, let's cut the BS. What do you want? How much you gonna take? Oh, you won't give it to us, but oh man, you sure give it to that drug dealing. And it's come on, bro. And he just forgive my wife. And it's just yeah, but Charlie's standing by his principles of right, the fact of the matter is, because his justification is that whole thing is going to be billions of dollars. It's going to bring in that whole thing that Jimmy's planning can bring in billions of dollars, but it also can be work because I think the way Jimmy was planning on doing is going to probably get out of New Orleans help to build it. But it's those could be jobs here that people could be hired to do. Plus, it can pump a lot of money into the economy and put a lot of money in people's pockets. And the fact is, he talks about it later, there was someone else trying to buy that particular property. But the problem is, they ended up disappearing. So the Baxters were the only ones standing that could. Because who was going to actually, there's probably very few people who could probably match equity-wise the Baxters. But also, who was going to match them equity-wise, considering, the other person that had a bid for that place disappeared. I'm not stupid. Oh, it's the Baxters too? Yeah. No, I'm passing on that. So Charlie's reopening it, and basically they would have to resubmit their submission as well as allow other people to bid on it too. That has to be the fairness of it all. So, but so that's where things kind of stand, and obviously Jimmy confronts Gina about it because for her it's why don't you have that fire in your belly? She's very let's go in guns blazing. Jimmy's let's kind of take a step back. Once again, don't get it twisted. Jimmy can get some stuff done. We've seen it last season, but he tries to be calm and cool. It's just they can both be hot-headed, but his wife's a lot more hot-headed than him. And so she wants him to be more action-orientated because she feels you make yourself seem so weak with your inactions. It's yeah, but your actions kind of make us seem to be the monsters that we are. But when it was all said and done, when he was telling her to calm down, which I'm no, never tell a woman to calm down. That's kind of that's a pretty golden rule. Don't tell some woman to calm down. Don't do that. You just don't. But also too, I was is this about to turn into a fight fuck type of situation? We fight and we argue and we kind of hate fuck? I was wondering if that was kind of where that was going. More so kind of we're in throes of passion because we're yelling at each other, and then our emotions kind of get the best of us, and we're just passionately making up type of thing. That's what I meant by fight fucking or fighting. I'm you get what I'm once again. Hopefully, you're getting what I'm trying to say. So I'm curious I was curious whether or not that was where that was going to go. Turned out it didn't, because it's like, oh, she's like, are you trying to fuck me? Okay, maybe you should leave that to Frankie too. It's like, ooh, blow to the ego in that, because Jimmy did not appreciate that one bit, because he's like, all right, you want me to take care of Big Mo? I'll send Frankie to do it. It's like, yeah, of course, because in her mind, it's like, yeah, it's proof of you're not man enough to actually do anything yourself. Of course, you're going to send someone else to do it. It's like, because I think Gina is crazy enough that she would probably kill Big Mo herself. She probably wouldn't just order Frankie to do it. She despises her enough with just everything, because it's like, hey, losing Rocco, and then almost one of her people, Eugene, trying to kill Carlos. She still will not let that slide. So later on, we find out while Big Mo's trying to buy the club that Gina put up a bid, and it's like, oh yeah, if you don't take our money, you know what can happen to you in the long term. And Big Mo's like, don't get it twisted. You know what can happen to you in the short term. Like, you getting so caught up in hypotheticals with her. I promise you, I'm gonna hurt you. I'm not even hurt you. I'm gonna straight up kill you, and I'm gonna do business with your kin. So how you want to? It's like, right, she's offering me this amount. She's like, all right, I'll give you 10%, and she's gonna do it in cash. So you're gonna need that cash by the end of the week. So Big Mo, who sent Lil Mo, which I should also clarify, maybe that came up last season. I didn't have a chance to rewatch. I didn't rewatch season 1 prior to this coming out. I should have, but I don't remember it ever coming up that Big Mo was his aunt. I knew, like, obviously the person Eugene's staying with is his aunt, but I didn't realize, like, I thought Big Mo was his mom. It's like, that's his aunt. They're both his aunts. So I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So she sent Little Mo to go and make that deal he was setting up last episode. But the problem is, now that she needs that cash on deck, she needs that money back. But Lil Mo's like, no, you sent me down here, because she made a whole point of, yeah, don't fail me again. It's like, you already let things kind of slide with the whole Eugene thing. Do not fail me again. So you need to make this deal happen. Because it's like, here I am giving a whole bunch of money to a stranger. It's like, yeah, this is how it works. You get the drugs, but bada bing, bada boom type of thing, right? But the problem is, Big Mo is so set on the club that she's willing to burn a bridge with this guy, which Lil Mo is like, don't do that. No. You know what's going to happen when this guy finds out we backed out on this deal, especially because it's like, cool, it's already been set. There's no going back on it. And it's like, especially because he knew what it meant. He was leaving his cousin Trey high and dry, because Trey even said, like, dude, I told you before I didn't want to be in the middle of this, but you and Aunt Mo had to put me in the middle of this. I didn't want to be in the middle of this. Like, and puts him in the position, because it ain't just going to be Little Mo and Big Mo who suffer the ramifications. He is, because now Home Dude's going to be like, oh, so you like to waste my time. It's like, he didn't want to get mixed up in this. He tries to keep it far away from this side of things, and he got dragged into this. Because his mom kind of has an idea, because she was like, oh, so how are things with your actual favorite aunt? He's like, no, she's good, trying to buy a club and everything. He's like, okay. And she sees a big duffel bag, so she knows what time it is. Which I didn't know how that scene was going to play out, because there were cops there, and obviously it made Eugene a little uneasy. Obviously they wouldn't be looking for him. They don't know to be looking for him, but he knows, like, right, we're here doing some shady business, so I don't want to turn this into something that it could be. And so, like, everything was going to be fine and dandy, but once again, you never know when stuff is just going to the rug is going to get pulled underneath you. So, like, amongst his reluctancy, Lil Mo had to back out the deal, which Trey did not appreciate, turned into a tussle. They both got arrested. Makes matters worse is that Lil Mo ended up accidentally, maybe intentionally, accidentally, he was probably caught up in the moment, headbutting a cop, so that makes things worse. Eugene stuck with the literal bag, and he's got Little Mo's phone, and Big Mo's calling. So it's like, what do you do? Because it's like, right, do you let her know that Lil Mo got arrested? This complicates things, because the deal's supposed to be going down in 2 hours. So what is Eugene going to do? Is he going to still make that deal? Is he going to, because it would mean going back to New Orleans and giving that money to Big Mo, but you shouldn't be anywhere near New Orleans, because if the Baxters find out you're still alive, it's on site, it's going to be an issue, because that's going to crumble everything between the piece that's pseudo going on right now, and that's going to put Desire in a bad situation, going to probably put Charlie in a bad situation, all things considered too. So once again, I knew Eugene wasn't going to be done in the story, said that since episode 1, but I wasn't sure what capacity would bring him back to New Orleans. And I think in some regards, it's interesting that I think with what kind of got discussed this episode between Carlo and Michael, which we'll get to in a second, I feel like that could play a part in just kind of it all kind of coming full circle a little bit in some regards. But yeah. Well, once again, this is all because Big Mo's about buying this club. It's like, because she's so, because also, one, she doesn't want to lose to Gina. Like, if the circumstances were a little different, she'd probably muscle in on whoever did buy it next. But it's Gina, and she knows Gina's doing it just to be petty, just so she doesn't have it. So that's the complicated thing. That's why she's like, I gotta outbid her. I gotta shut her down. Like, I gotta prove my dominance. It's like, yo, I gotta put mine like on the table too. I gotta slam it down and be like, yo, check it out. So it's that, but also it's like, that's because buying the club is important to Big Mo. It's something personal for her because her girlfriend works there and she wants to do it just to, kind of flex and show. Because also I think she wants that to be like, she probably wants to legitimize herself a little bit business wise. I mean, it also might be might be a front to launder money through. Maybe we really haven't gotten to that discussion at that point. So, but it seemed like it's more so for her girlfriend, but we don't know. So now, and she's putting Lil Mo in that complicated position. So we'll have to wait to see how it all plays out, what Eugene's going to decide to ultimately do. There's also the situation with Michael immediately picking up in the aftermath of last episode when he found out he has a grandchild. Turns out Olivia already knew that, because I was like, oh, because she wants motivation to make Michael do what he's got to do. And she's like, right, I'm not asking you to do anything. It's like, right, you're someone who knows what the Baxters are up to, because she's like, I want you to find out what the Baxters are doing. Because I figured as much, because it's like, oh yeah, what's your grandchild son's name? It's like, don't play with me. He's like, you already know what the child's name is. But it's like, I assume because we find out from Fia, like her mom wants her to get Rocco baptized, because in her mind it's like, right, I want to know that if, whenever they do eventually meet, that Rocco will be in heaven along with this baby. But Fia is a atheist, and so that ends up being a point of contention between them. So I think that also plays into why she was asking whether or not Adam believed in God and stuff last episode. I think a lot of that played into that conversation, because her mom's probably been pushing her for it for a while now. So, but I figured Olivia wanted him to use that opportunity, use the grandson to be your in, trying to be one of the grandparents in Rocco Adams' life. That you could use that opportunity to get closer to the Baxters, which is like, well, the Baxters are always going to keep him at arm's length just because of everything. Because it's like, well, they know the truth that Adam was responsible for what happened to Rocco, but also that Michael did everything he could. Plus, it's like, right, would you really side with us regardless of it all? Circumstances with us are kind of what led to your son's death. So, obviously they wouldn't be too trusting of him, which I am because Olivia's like, oh, I know what you're capable of, and I know what you're not capable of. I just want, it's like, what is your end? Well, we know what her end goal is. She wants to take the Baxters down, but it's not just taking down the Baxters, as she explains it to Nancy. She wants to take down every bad guy, and for her, she feels like she can't get Michael motivated, because yes, he was a judge about taking down bad people, but also giving people a second chance. But obviously that spark in him is gone, because it's like, right, he is someone who used the system to his benefit to try and save his son, and a lot of death and destruction followed. A lot of Eugene's family's blood is on his hand, whether it's Kofi, whether it's his mom, and his other siblings. Michael feels responsible on that, and he's failed in every aspect. He probably feels like he failed Adam. In many regards, he feels like he failed Robin, especially the confrontation with Nancy last episode probably makes that sting and stick. There's a lot of self-hatred on his part too, so that's why he's not motivated to do the right thing. She was hoping that finding out about having a grandchild, because she's like, oh, it's not my secret to tell, hoping that finding out about him having a grandchild would be all the motivation he needs. But for him, it's probably because he told Fia, it's like, I don't know what I want. So, but for her, because Michael was like, why does this mean so much to you? And she's like, why does this not mean anything to you? And I think it's like, she has a personal vendetta in all this. The way Nancy talks about it later on, she was in New York, but apparently coming down here to New Orleans was most likely a demotion. So the question is, does she just have a thing against crime families in general? Is there someone in particular she's trying to take down, and the Baxters are the key to doing that? But it feels like she is going super hard in the paint against the Baxters. So that is the interesting thing. Because also Nancy was making a point. I get it. You're from a big city like New York, like everything related there. Now it's like, oh, you're kind of in like our small city of. I mean, I don't know what like size wise, like if New Orleans, like what the comparison is, like population and size wise to like New York, but she feels like she's almost saying like, right, we're kind of small time in comparison to like the big time crimes that you're kind of dealing with in a big city like New York. It kind of feels like that's what Nancy was kind of getting to, because Olivia wants Nancy to, it's like, right, you know Michael enough, you were friends enough to you, that could be your means of motivating him, which I'm curious if Robin's murder is going to come back into play, because I was thinking about it all last season. I was like, were we ever going to tackle that? And I wasn't sure, and it never got resolved, and I was still under the impression it was going to be a limited series, and maybe like a one season, but now there's two, and this obviously is going to be the final one. So I'm wondering, will the Robin stuff come back up? Because they made it just might be like flavor text to just everything that family's been through, but I was about to say, like, they made a point of, like, that she got murdered, and I was wondering if that kind of have some correlation, if that could be some motivation in some regard, so. But, Nancy's reluctant to help her, but we don't know if that's going to end up being something that, if that conversation ends up changing or not going forward. But also, I think Thea really likes hearing Michael's perspective, because she's had to deal with her parents enough, and she likes Michael a little bit more, because also probably like being around him is just probably a nice reminder about Adam, because also he's someone that's willing to ask her and listen to her, where she feels like her parents are just kind of demanding, like, you do this because we told you to, type of thing. So Carlo starts kind of busting his chops, because it's like, right, I served my full sentence, what about you? And Michael made reference to someone named, oh God, what was it? Was it Harry the Hook? I want to say maybe. And it's like, oh, do you know who that is? It's like, no, it's a Chicago mobster. You should look him up. And Carlo did. And it kind of, he was talking to his dad. It's like, did I get off of like my murder charge? Because it's like, no, you did it because it was self-defense. But he's like, what about with, and he brings it up to his dad. He's like, no, I don't know who that is. And I have to look that up really quickly. So doing a little bit of Googling, once again, not a lot, just a little light reading. Harry the Hook, for one, was a real mobster, mob hitman. And it also seems like it was the double jeopardy thing of, oh, you can't be tried for the same thing twice. But that, I didn't know double jeopardy could be overturned in regards of corruption. Now, that's interesting. Like, I guess if it's maybe specifically it has to be with the judge. I was wondering, like, if you find out there's jury tampering after the fact, could double jeopardy be like overturned in that regard? Once again, I didn't read too much into it, but I saw that glimpse of it. It seems like that is the case. So, yeah, charged twice, tried twice for the same crime, because once again, that's the whole point of the double jeopardy, because you can't be. So I was like, that's interesting. I mean, it makes sense, because it's like, right, you find out, because basically it means that entire trial was a fallacy, so whatever decision was made can't be held up as fact or as truth. So it makes sense. I was like, that's interesting. And also having that thrown back in Carlos' face like that. I mean, because the fact is, obviously, the circumstances are exactly the same. That's why Michael put that out there. I mean, I'm surprised that hasn't come up yet, but I guess there's no official way. I guess because of everything that went down, a lot of the stuff from Michael's statement had to be like buried, just so that he could get released and not be seen as a snitch to Jimmy Baxter. But it's like, yeah, he confessed to a lot of stuff, so it probably could end up being a thing of eventually down the road. And I guess that is going to, like, if Eugene doesn't end up killing Carlo, or he doesn't get sent to prison again and ends up getting murdered in prison because of the whole Kofi thing, it could be just like, yeah, you end up getting tried, because it's like, right, Michael was doing some shady stuff. He was involved with your dad, basically propositioned him to lean more towards pushing a not guilty verdict towards you. So it makes a lot of sense. So I could definitely see that. And obviously it really, because Carlo had no idea his dad had kind of set this up. So now he kind of has an idea of it, especially because Michael's the one that threw it in his face. Judge Michael, who was also the judge proceeding your trial in particular. So that's definitely going to be really interesting to see they're setting that up. So I'm curious to see when they end up kind of pulling the trigger on that particular one. But there was also this interesting conversation between Jimmy and Michael. It's like Jimmy's, because Michael's like, when Rocco dies, like, no, when Adam killed Rocco, he's like, when Adam killed Rocco, the fact of the matter is, I was actually taking my son to confess and turn himself in, but then I saw you and I turned around. He's like, that one decision ended up leading to all of this. And it's just kind of like, for Jimmy, it's like, right, I'm a reasonable enough man. You wanted to see me as the monster I am, which he was like, yes, because I know who you are. But Jimmy's like, I would have forgiven Adam. The fact of the matter is, it wasn't Adam's fear. Like, Adam was a boy. Of course he was going to run. He was scared. But your fear is what got your son killed, not me. Like, you're the reason why things turned out this way. But even Frankie asked him, like, yeah, if that kid actually had confessed, Jimmy's like, oh, I would have killed him with my bare hands. So, like, no matter what, Adam would be dead. Like, Michael would have been able to go about things the legal way to try and protect his son, sure. But Jimmy still would have gotten to, I mean, look at the Kofi situation. Like, it still would have happened in some shape or form. Because I'm sure, instead of Kofi being in that cell, Carlo would have found his way to, I mean, that's only because he knew that Carlo was coming for him, so it's like, I got to get him before he gets me. But Adam wouldn't have done that, and Carlo would have come to him and ended up getting him. So, and the argument could be like, well, if it fell out that way, there would be no aftermath. But it's like, right, the end result still would have been Michael doing everything he could. At the very least, Adam was out and about, and he can do all the stuff that he had to do to protect his son. Like, there was no winning that. It was always going to be a lose-lose situation. You could just make the argument he lost so much more this route than the other route, but the end result still would have been the same. But they're still, so obviously you're like, right, follow the law, it's, but you're also kind of like, right, as a parent, you just want to be like, I'll do whatever it takes to protect my child. So I think people can understand that sentiment. Obviously, it's just a level of degree of like how far someone's willing to go. You probably never want to go to such extreme lengths as other people have. Obviously, we've seen in TV shows and stuff like that, but still. So I just thought that was such an interesting conversation for them to have. Because Michael also had talked to Charlie, and Charlie said, hey, like, the Baxters are most likely going to try and scare me. Is there anything I should be aware of? He's like, I know I shouldn't be asking this, but is there anything that you told someone that could come back to bite me? Well, the only person who knows anything is Olivia. I don't know. I would assume Nancy knows just because of the nature of her getting his confession and stuff, so. About the Charlie situation, because Olivia's holding it above his head and stuff. But Michael's like, right, you know me, I'd do anything to protect you, which is, I think that doubling with like, hey, I'm a grandfather, doubling also with the fact is that Jimmy's his situation with that probably would have been enough to probably motivate him. But at the end of the day, he realizes like, right, it is my choice. And especially Jimmy letting him, because Jimmy wanted him to kind of wallow in that. It's like, oh, I'm going to tell him that because I don't want to ease his pain. I want him to feel everything. So I told him like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have killed your son. You're the reason why your son is dead because the choice you made, your fear got the best of you. It's like, once again, the end result still would have been the same. Adam would have sadly died. Just it would have, sadly, rather than a misplaced bullet by Eugene, it ended up being purposely by Jimmy. So Michael also had that interesting conversation with Fia at the end of the episode, saying that obviously Adam was baptized too, but she's like, oh, but you said you didn't believe in it. It's like, yeah, but Robin did. And he's like, yeah, we eventually we had a conversation about it. He's like, actually, no, let me take that back. Truth be told is, we argued about it for weeks. And then eventually she asked me, why are you fighting me so hard on something that doesn't matter to you? You are an atheist. You don't believe in this stuff anyway. So for her, it's like, regardless of this, because I do believe in this, what harm is it going to do? If it doesn't matter, if it doesn't mean anything to you, then why are you fighting me on something that doesn't matter? If it doesn't matter, go ahead and let me do it. And even Fia's like, well, why did you eventually concede? Why did you fight her so hard if that is the case? Because he's like, because I thought I was right. And the fact is that she's like, do you regret kind of giving in? And he's like, I regret not giving in sooner in a lot of regards of like not, because I think it's that thing of you spend so much time fighting and arguing, standing your ground on certain things when you should just let stuff go. Because obviously you wouldn't know what the future holds that Robin would be taken from him. Same thing for Adam. It's just that thing of, and kind of, I think making Thea think like, all right, I'll give in to what my mom wants just because it's like, right, it doesn't matter to me, but obviously it means so much to her. So I think Thea probably will give in to the baptism. And Michael being there with Rocco, and lo and behold, who stands beside him? None other than Jimmy. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see. It's like, right, both grandfathers, it's like, so standing above the baby and what that kind of signifies going forward, especially considering Michael and Jimmy just had that conversation, like a little the scene before all that. So I'm very fascinated to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.